What's cooking, everybody? All right, this episode was awesome. I got to sit with Tate from Overland Spices. They're a newer company, but they've been absolutely smashing the world of camp cooking. And I think everybody can agree that if there's one thing you're doing when you're going camping that everybody's going to be doing, it's cooking. You have to cook, you have to eat. So obviously having somebody who can cook is a great thing, but you want to have what's going to make that meal pop. And that's what Tate brings to that table is his spices. He's got a new one coming out, which we're going to be talking about in the show. And I absolutely cannot wait till we're in that area and we can have some of that cooking and go camping with him. They do amazing competitions and all the Overland Expos and stuff like that. They have a kids section where kids cook a grilled cheese. The judges get unreal food. You can actually apply to be a judge for those competitions. So tons of cool stuff. We go over all of it in this episode. So please enjoy. My good Lord, look at that meat. God, that looks delicious. Anyways, I love food. So enjoy this episode. Enjoy what we talk about. And here's our sponsor. I want to thank Pour Off-Road Coffee Company for sponsoring us, for being a part of this adventure with us, for making these morning coffee talks or whatever I'm going to call them possible, and making an absolutely gangster cup of coffee that I get to have every morning and afternoon, and sometimes I have it in the evening as well. But yeah, thank you to Pour Off-Road Coffee Company. You guys are amazing. Veteran-owned. I want some coffee. Veteran-owned coffee company. They give back to the community. They always have some sort of giveaway, some sort of promotion on the go. So hit that link down below. Go check them out. Get yourself a bag of coffee. Tag me in it. Tag them in it. Let us know what it's like, because I'll tell you what, I love my coffee throughout the day pretty much, and I drink a shit ton of it, and it's delicious. So check them out. Pour Off-Road Coffee Company. Thanks again. You are the first business in the overland world that I get to do, so I'm super pumped on that.
Nice.
And you are all about food, so I'm also super pumped on that because I love food. So
That's awesome.
it should be a good one. But yeah, let's dive right into it. And so who is Overland Spices? Where can we find you guys? And then I'd love to know how it all started.
Yeah. Yeah. So Overland Spices is me and my wife. Um, I'm a fat kid who loves food and I love to cook in cool places. That's why I camp, so I can cook in cool places. And I loved it so much that I had to start a business in the industry. So I grew up in Texas. My dad did competition barbecues, and he was that guy that you could sprinkle some seasoning in his palm. He could lick it, right, and then tell you exactly what was in it. Now
Holy
I
shit.
don't have that gift. I just like something that works, right? And so I've always wanted to own a spice business, but the market is just saturated. There's so many good ones out there that even I love. I just don't have the pockets to compete in the marketing side and advertising in the spice world. So start overlanding and doing some adventure-based travel. And it's like, man, this is my niche market. This is, people are spending $500 on these stoves or these elaborate cooking systems that, a scuttle. And so the idea was like, well, if I could create some blends that were versatile, right? You can have just a few of them in your spice box, leave them in your camping rig, whatever that is, a camper, overland rig, whatever, and to be able to cook really a wide array of food, whether that's barbecue or Mexican food or steak or you name it. The idea was to create blends that were versatile and you could, them in your rig.
That's awesome, and it's cool that your dad. So your dad was he was a chef, or he was just he just loved food, and he was, because I mean, not just anybody can lick spices and be like, yeah, this is this and that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was not a chef. He just loved barbecue, and that was his like passion. Like I love to travel and I love to like camp and sit by a river. He loved to cook barbecue, like barbecue competitions 2 or 3 weekends out of the month. And needless to say, I hated barbecue for the longest time because that's all we ate. But now it's just I don't know. I love it too. So
Oh, that's awesome. And where are you guys based out of?
Yeah, so we are based out of Oklahoma.
Okay.
That's where our business is at. We don't do the blending in house just because I don't have a facility for that yet. We outsource all that. That way, I don't have to risk, a beard hair showing up in someone's bottle of spices.
That's an extra
So,
treat.
yeah,
Like, how does, when you say blending, like, how do you make, because let's go on your triple lock. I think that's the catchiest, greatest name for a spice, and then with it goes over everything. It fits
yeah,
the overlanding world and the food world
yeah,
so perfectly.
yeah,
So how do you blend it? How do you make it? Like in my head, I'm like, well, you just put a bunch of different things together and shake it up, and there you go. But I'm sure it's like guaranteed. It's obviously more complicated than that. Like, how
yeah,
does that happen? How do you do that?
yeah. No, that's exactly how it happens. That is literally exactly how it happens. You're like, oh, try it, and then you're like, oh, this is it. I love it. And then you have to do the back end stuff, because like starting small, you start with like teaspoons and tablespoons, but whenever you send your recipe to the facility, they do it all by weight. So then that adds a whole nother level of guesswork until you really get it pinned down. So I knew I wanted to start with something simple that was versatile, could literally go on everything. So in the normal spice world, this is SPG, salt, pepper, garlic. That's kind of, everyone has that staple that their business is built around. And so the marketing had to be there. I mean, it just had to. So the name, it just stuck. And so really just a lot of testing, add a little more garlic. Let's do less salt. Let's do more of this. Let's try to be different. And obviously people are going to be supportive just because the names are fun and people, like me and my wife. So, yeah, so we're working on a new blend right now, and that's where we're at. We're at the phase where I've got it honed in, but it's missing something, and I can't figure out what that something is. And so I've sent it to a few different people who, a couple of them are trained chefs. A couple of them are just people I know will be honest with me, and tell me what they think. And so then I'll get their feedback, and we'll go back.
Oh, you cut out there for a sec, but so like basically you're sending it to them, and then so what they're gonna say, like, oh, maybe they'll give you like some ideas essentially, and then you're like, okay, let's try this, add a little bit of this, or like will they add it themselves if they know what they're doing and be like, hey man, I added a little bit of, I don't know, cumin or whatever,
Yeah,
and it, kind of thing. Like, I find it fascinating, the whole, it's like, it's almost like when you're a kid and you're in the bathtub mixing all your parents' shampoo and conditioner and trying to make a potion. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you're just trying, and then but instead of a mess that you get yelled at for, you make a delicious spice that you can put on food to make it way
Ex-
better.
exactly. It's like when your parents took you to Taco Bell and they let you pick your drink and you had, like
Everything.
8 different sodas in there, and so
Oh man,
yeah.
that's
So I know one of my guys, Jesse, he's a trained chef. Overland Chef is his Instagram. Super good dude. He's been super supportive of my brand since day one. Um, but so I sent it to him, and he might actually try some stuff himself and let me know. Or he might just say, "Hey, I think you need more paprika, or more of this, or less of this." So I'm a chill guy, and you can't really offend me. So like I'm always open to any kind of criticism if that makes me better. So
I mean that's kind
if
of
he has ideas,
the best way to get better, really.
yeah,
No, that's awesome. And then you guys do a lot of like because I've seen that you've gone to a lot of the expos, and then so you guys do cooking stuff there. Like, I think you guys did something with Tembo Tusk on the Scottle cooking kind of thing going on. So like, how do you find that kind of atmosphere? Because it looks super fun to put on these cooking competitions. And I think you have
yeah,
one coming up here right away with
yeah.
Average Overlanders. The what is it? The Wiener.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so they've got one they're doing. We're sponsoring that one. They invited us out to. I wish I could come. I need to get to that part of the country in a bad way, but yeah. So I'm a sponsor for that. I donated some prizes. I'm not real sure how he's running his competition, but I know we are actually hosting 2 cooking competitions coming up at some overland events, kind of in our part of the country, and that's really is my passion. I want to see people really just like go to the next level in their adventure, and I think part of that is cooking because going to these expos, it's one of the questions I always ask to get people to like step up to my booth is, hey, who's the camp cook, right? Who's the cook? And at Expo in Flagstaff this year, I probably had 5 or 6 people look me in my face and say, I don't cook, I'm camping. And I'm like, what do you eat? And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, freeze dried meals. And I'm like, okay, those have
Uh,
their place, but that's why I camp, is so that I can cook, And so I don't understand that side of it, but uh, it's cool seeing people like think that this common misconception of because we're camping, we're roughing it, doesn't mean you have to eat boiled hot dogs. Um, and a hamburger has its place, but I'm not going to cook a hamburger every time I go camping.
yeah.
I want to throw down a full quality, healthy meal that is fulfilling, and 99% of the time, it's better in the woods than it is at home, anyways.
I can well imagine, like, if I were to look back on myself when, like, before I was married with kids, I would probably 100% just rock out some hamburger in the Dutch oven with some salt on it and be more than
Oh yeah,
happy. But
yeah,
I'm not the camp cook. My wife is 100% the camp cook, and I always say she's an assassin with anything cast iron over the fire
oh, that's
because
awesome.
she makes legitimate meals. Because obviously, there's me, there's our son Wilder, and our 1 year old Fox. But she makes like full blown meals on and she'll have like a list of everything and it's always like I'm eating at home. But God forbid,
Yeah,
like we would never like if I were to be like, hey, let's let's bust out one of these peak fuel meals or freeze dry. She'd be like that, like no, get out of here. Go eat that
get
when
that
you're
out of
hunting
here.
by yourself. Like that's not
Yeah,
we're not going to eat that on the road.
yeah,
Like, but yeah, so I see what you mean. Like yeah, 100%. You have to have actual cooking,
yeah,
especially if it's more than a day, 2 days, 3 days on the road.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
the idea behind the cooking competitions that we host is like growing up, I grew up camping, and like my mom's peach cobbler in a Dutch oven, I'll put it up against anybody, right? And so it seems like a lot of people have that kind of connection somewhere in their world. And I want to see and I want to taste that connection because when there's emotion involved, it's always better. Um, and so that's why we started the ultimate camp cook is everyone's like, well, you need to do a secret ingredient or you need to do this category, and I'm like, no, we're going to keep it vague. And so when we host, we do a breakfast category, we do a dinner category, and we do dessert, and the only rule is it has to be cooked outside.
so there's no like, hey, you guys are gonna cook this. It's cook what you would cook, like cook your
Yep,
best meal. And then, oh
exactly. I want to
man,
taste what your go-to is because it stretches people and it helps people realize like, hey, I don't have to cook a hot dog. I can cook. I mean, last year, the lady who won, her side dish and her dinner was some Brussels sprouts. I hate Brussels sprouts. I try to like them, but she cooked these Brussels sprouts. I don't know what was in them. They're phenomenal. And so I'm like, okay, now I want to try to cook Brussels sprouts. Just really being able to stretch people. So
I like the one that you have coming up because you put a under 12 category with a grilled cheese. I think that's
yeah,
amazing. Get the kids involved, and I bet you it gets
yeah.
creative.
Yeah, we did that 3 times last year with the kids, and it was a big hit. It was cool. I mean, one little girl, she won one of the competitions. She cooked a jalapeno popper grilled cheese.
Oh
Like it had
shoot!
ham, jalapenos, and cream cheese, and it's phenomenal. And getting the kids involved, and every kid wants to make 50 or $100 if they
Oh
win.
yeah,
And
that's big
it's
dough.
fun. Yeah, and so we also do judging. You can be a judge. You got to pay to be a judge, but I mean, it's like I think I'm charged this year. It's $40, but you get a shirt, and that gets you basically 3 meals and dessert that you don't have to
Yeah,
prep for. So it's like a no brainer. It's fun being able to kind of make it full circle.
for
So
sure, man. No, I
yeah,
love that. I think that's I think I haven't seen anybody else kind of bringing a cooking aspect to this level in the overland world, which is super
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, like if I feel like anybody who busts out a full blown like, hey, I'm gonna cook a meal at camp tonight. I mean, like Marco from
Oh yeah.
like the food that I see him cook. I'm like,
Yeah.
what in the world? Like, just
Yeah. Can I
unreal.
camp with you, please?
Yeah, like I'm like I'll buy the groceries, man. I just need you to
Yeah.
cook that, and I want
Yeah.
that. It looks unreal.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can't imagine not like just living, going for a week in the bush and having freeze dry meals when there's the opportunity to have that. So I think what you're doing is awesome. Like it like you
Yeah.
said, it's a niche that doesn't exist
Yeah.
until you stepped into it, right?
Yeah.
So like how long have you been, you know, overlanding, I guess, or you said you grew up camping, so you've been kind of living that outdoor adventure life for a while then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say, I mean, everyone classifies overlanding different. Me, I just think it's adventure travel. I mean, we're all glorified car campers essentially. Um, I've had a rooftop tent on my vehicle for probably the last 4 years. So that's whenever it became more self-reliant vehicle based, I guess, not necessarily hiking or, I mean, I would always I remember in high school I had a little Ford Ranger that was four-wheel drive. We would go off in the middle of the field, try not to get stuck, and then just pitch camp wherever. I mean, that was overlanding.
Yeah.
So um yeah, it's cool though, even though I've been camping all my life, how it's evolved into more efficiencies and like quality stuff. I mean, I've got my buddy Kyle owns Okie Overland in Tulsa, and he gives me so much grief because I have a spatula that actually Marco uses for his scuttle by a company called Dryad Cookery, and it's literally a titanium spatula that cost me $70, but I love it. And he gives me so much hell for it. And I'm like, you back off my spatula. You're
So
gonna keep giving me heck about it. I'm not gonna cook for you anymore.
is $70 for a spatula on the high end or the low end? Like, is he giving you grief because you got a super expensive spatula, or because like what? I have no idea.
Oh yeah, super expensive. He's like, my little $3 job from Walmart's just good, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not titanium. Doesn't make me feel like a chef.
Hey man, I mean, I feel like nobody can give the chef any kind of grief. If you're cooking,
Yep.
I always say like I used to work in the car industry. We would have, they'd get us free meals on Saturdays, and people would bitch and complain about what the meal was for, like
Yeah.
what they bought us. And I'm like, man, you don't complain about a free meal, and you
No.
don't complain
Never.
to who's cooking your meal
Yeah.
either. So those
Yeah.
those are my two rules. That
Yeah.
fruit, if you don't like it, don't eat it. But that's
Yeah.
about it. Um, did you find that when you put the rooftop tent on your vehicle that your your area of camping expanded? Like now you're going further and newer places with the tent on there.
Yes and no. I know we do a lot more local stuff, and I wouldn't call my style. I'm not a wheeler. I will do a trail if it's what it takes to get to a cool camp spot. Um, and so that being the case, I don't like. I would rather go and set up camp and maybe stay for a couple days. Now, I have done some trips where it's, one night here, one night here, one night here. And those are fun and they have their place. But again, when I go with those groups, they're more of the freeze dried, quick, like I'm just going to get some food in my body
No
so that I'm
setup.
not starving. Yeah. And that's not really my jive. I mean, I'll do it to hang out with the guys like that. But again, I'd rather sit down, let's cook a good meal, drink a cold beer, and just chill.
Yeah.
So that being said, more of my weekends are spent kind of locally, maybe on the lake or with some close friends, just chilling.
Yeah. It's it's kind of those two types of people. Like we've never really, like, we haven't overlanded yet. Essentially, we just discovered overlanding a few months ago, and we're We're going to try to go from here to Argentina for the next 2 years.
Oh, nice.
But we had done a lot of like vacations and stuff, and I always said there's two types of people on vacation: the ones like myself who just want to sit around, enjoy the sun, and not do anything, and then the other ones that have to see everything and just nonstop go go go. And I'm kind of like you. Like I feel like I would much rather just set up a nice setup somewhere with some good views and then just relax and enjoy the time there.
Definitely.
So where's the number one place you've been? Like your favorite, if you could go back there, you'd go back there right now.
Oh, geez. I don't know that I can answer that. Because I haven't gotten to go a ton of places. I've been to Colorado a couple times. Never really on an overlanding trip. We did do a several-day camping trip there that was a blast, but I didn't. I've always been with people that necessarily their rigs aren't built up like mine, or they're not set up to do that kind of traveling, and so it's like state parks and like a couple national parks that some of them are cool, but the ones I've been to have not been. So like my bucket list, I'm a hot guy. I love the heat. I want to go to Baja. So that's actually on my radar. We're planning a trip for Colorado next year. I mean, there's all the places you want to go. But I just Baja's my desire.
So what's holding you back from going to Baja?
Oh, life, family, bills,
fair,
rig, getting across the border. I've got a couple people we've talked to, and we're trying to pin a date range for 2025, early 2025. So then it's like kind of makes it real, where you have to start kind of getting some things in order and making sure things are ready. So we'll see what happens.
How far? Like I have no idea distance wise. Like how far are you from like the Mexican border? Because Baja's all the way on the west coast.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna look it up right now. It says 21 minutes. That's definitely not correct.
21 minutes, man. There's nothing stopping you.
I wish. Yeah. So. I mean, I'm in northern Oklahoma, so 21 hours.
Okay, and that's just to the border.
Well, that would be to Baja, is what it's saying. So, but I get to cross through New Mexico and Arizona. So there's that would be easy. You just make it a couple-day trip there, a couple-day trip back, and 4 or 5 days there. So
line it up with the Flagstaff Expo, and then you just keep going. Pick up a crew on the way through the expo, and then off you go to Baja.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Baja is definitely on our list. We spent 2 years in like the Riviera Maya area in Mexico.
Oh yeah.
And
nice.
We were just kind of said, screw it, let's go to Mexico. So we just sold everything and moved to Mexico to see how that would go. Went well, and then we said, hey, let's do this, but driving. So that's how we ended up in the overland world. But yeah, we definitely want to go through. We want to go into Baja and then ferry over to Mazatlan to continue the trip, but do the whole Baja peninsula, I guess it'd be called.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I've cool. Seen too many, like, especially I watched one of Marco's videos going through there, and I was like, man, we gotta do this. I need to go through Baja on our way through there. So, and it's probably a safer route through Mexico than going through the central areas. In my head,
I would say so.
But so other than Baja, you had said that you wanted to go to like the Pacific Northwest area, kind of something.
Yeah,
fierce.
I mean, there's so much to do in the country. I mean, I think we're planning a trip for Colorado for next year. Colorado's cool. That's like one of the meccas. I'm gonna go, and it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. But also trying to get a trip together for the Northeast, like Maine, Boston. Go eat some lobster. maybe go. I don't know. Who knows?
Have you ever
You can
been
just
up
go
that way?
anywhere. That's do what?
Have you ever been up that way?
So when I was younger, we went to New York, but that's and then to Niagara Falls, and then back down to like Michigan and stuff, but never that far east. I've got a buddy that lives out there that has property on Martha's Vineyard. So who knows what could happen? I told my buddy, I said we just need like 3 weeks. Just let's just mark off 3 weeks and just head that direction
Yeah.
during lobster season, where we can get lobster for $1 a tail, and
Oh,
then we'll just plan our trip around that.
oh, $1 a tail for lobster?
Supposedly, I don't know if that's the case, but one of my buddies said that if you go at a certain time of year, you can sit on the coast somewhere and literally get lobsters for $1 a tail.
I know you can get like I'm from New Brunswick, so like that's just connecting with Maine.
Oh, nice.
And in the summertime, certain usually towards like the top of summer is when you can kind of go to the pier and get some, but it's always still like $4 to $5 a pound. And
Oh,
it's
really?
yeah, so like oh man, I could destroy $1 a tail. Woo!
Mm.
Oh my
I mean, even
gosh.
honestly, living in Oklahoma, $4 to $5 a pound sounds phenomenal.
Well, also that's Canadian, so for you guys it'd probably
Ah,
be closer to like $3, 2.50 a
oh,
pound. So I
nice.
guess yeah, $1 a tail wouldn't be too far off, but my gosh, man, I miss some good. I'm on the West Coast now, so I miss
Yeah,
the good East Coast
yeah.
lobsters, something fierce.
So, how do you guys get from up there to like desiring Central America?
Well, because so when we went to Mexico originally, we had never been to Mexico. We had never traveled there. We knew nothing about it. We knew nobody there. It was like the middle of COVID. Everything was just up here was going sour pretty quick, and we were just like, you know what? Let's go to Mexico. And I came home one night. I was like, hey, you want to move to Mexico? And she was 1 month pregnant with our second son, and she's like, okay. And then 3 weeks later, we were on a plane. We sold the house, we sold the cars, and
Man,
just sold everything. We had 2 suitcases with our life, our 3-year-old at the time, and yeah, we're like, screw it, let's go. And when we got there, we met a bunch of people that had kids around our kids' ages, but that had traveled so much, and like they had been, here, there, everywhere, and and then fast forward to March or April this year, and our lease was coming up, and we're like, hey, what do we do now? Like, do we stay here? And in the back of my head, I was like, you know what? Mexico will always be an option for us. We have permanent residency now because our son was born here.
oh,
Um,
nice.
we can always come back. We can always spend as much time as we want here. So I forget. I think I was playing around with like ChatGPT when it first come out, and somehow overlanding, like traveling in a vehicle, became a thing. We have never been
Yeah.
camping. Like we have her my wife's parents have a piece of land. That's where we've been staying since June, and there's a cabin on it, so like that's the closest we've been to camping. And we've just been trying to build up the Jeep, but I was like, hey, like you want to drive from Alaska back here in Mexico? And she's like, okay, like sure, let's give it a shot and do some traveling, and try to hit every state and every province on our way. And then I found out you can drive through South America, and I was like, hey, you want to go to Argentina? And she's like, okay. And then I found out you can ship your vehicle in a sea can, and I was like, hey, after that, you want to go see my sisters in Europe? And she's like, okay.
Oh, man,
So we're kind of just winging it at this point.
that's
I
awesome.
I thought that we could fly back here at the end of June, and then we'd be on the road in the vehicle within 3 weeks to a month. I was so wrong. It has been like I feel like an idiot thinking I could plan a 2-year cross continental trip in 3 weeks time. Not the chance. Not the case. So hopefully we're going to be hitting the road in the next week, in the next 2 weeks. Like we're getting to
Nice.
that point now where we're like, you know what, screw it. We're not 100% ready. We don't have all the gear we wish we had, but like it's getting cold as shit here, and I just want to hit the road. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes, and that's kind of why I started these interview podcasts, whatever you want to call them, because I was like, man, I just want to learn from everybody
Yeah.
else doing the overland work thing, because it's hard to get that inside scoop on what's going on just through social media, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's tough, especially with gear, because I work with my buddy Kyle who owns an overland shop, and it's the industry has kind of flipped from even a year ago, where you could get on YouTube and find good quality reviews on stuff and figure out which route you need to go. But now all these influencers, like, more power to them. Like I'm glad they're there, but it's hard. We tell people all the time, like, do your own research and don't just use YouTube, because all these people, they get stuff given to them and they like are forced to have a good review about the
yeah,
product, and it may not be the case. That's my biggest motto, especially being in this every day, is just go. It's a little bit different. You guys are fully committed, but to more of our weekend warriors, or even our bigger month or 2 month long trip people, it's like, you just need to go. Like, you don't need all of this stuff. You don't need this. You don't need a rooftop tent. Like, just go, because we kind of hinted this earlier. Like, my camping has evolved so much, and it's like, even still, every trip I go on, I come back home, and there's something else I want to change. Not necessarily to have the biggest, baddest, coolest, newest thing, but to make my process a little bit more efficient. And now, I say that, and a lot of people are like, "Well, your stuff's already fast." It's like, well, efficiency to me is not speed. It's about, I mean, speed is part of it, but when I get to camp, like we talked about, I want to cook a good meal. I don't want to spend 30 minutes setting up camp just so that I can cook a meal. I want to be
yeah,
able to throw it all up real quick and then relax. And so just like building a drawer system, making sure that like people laugh at me because I have a little drawer that's like, it's like 4 inches tall, but I can pull it out, and like it's like my knife drawer at home. Like, I have all my knives are right there, my silverware is right there, like my aluminum foil is right there. Like I don't want to pull a box out to have to get this stuff out. I want
digging
it to all have a
through
spot.
it, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and
There's
that
no, go ahead.
They say the boxes work well for a lot of people, but because I've camped enough and I've gone enough, and I know what works for me. I think that's one of the most frustrating things for me on social media is people are like, well, this is the best tent, or this is the best this. It's like, no, dude, that's the best for you. That doesn't mean it's the best for me. Like, just go
Well,
camp, figure out what's best for you.
and realistically, like when somebody says like, well, this is the best. All right, you try everything else then too, or have you just tried
Right.
that one?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's, you can't, you have a very
Yeah.
biased opinion. But
Exactly.
the hard part now is, so I've been trying to figure out what. So I have a tent, a rooftop tent that's, I don't know, 5 years old. Like it's from 2017. We had gotten it and we used it once for 2 days. That's the extent of our camping experience. It's not the best. It's probably, well, it's definitely not the best at this point with all the evolution that's gone
Yeah.
into those things. It's a soft shell, but and it's too small for four of us. But we're gonna make it work for now, because the craziest part is I'm trying to find a rack to put on, to put it on. And I remember before we left, when I was in car sales, I would, we had a parts counter. I was selling Jeeps and Rams at a Chrysler store. So lots of like, people putting racks and stuff and tonneau covers and
Hmm.
that stuff. And the cost is almost doubled on all of that over
Yeah.
the last, 3 years. It's
Yeah.
crazy how
Yeah.
expensive it's gotten. So I've been trying to just build stuff myself. Yesterday, I, I was sitting, staring, just pondering, and I was like, man, can I build a rack? Like, can I build my own setup for this thing and just use plywood and some sort of metal framing for it at this point? Like, is that a doable? Because it's crazy how expensive things have gotten, and
Yeah.
it's hard to commit to something when we're going to be living in it full time and drop in the amount of money that I'd have to drop on it to, maybe it's not going to work. So I was
Yeah.
like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to use what I got now. We'll see how it works. And in the hopes that we can um, not inspire, but show other families like, hey, you don't need this $25,000 box setup.
Yeah.
We're doing it with what we got, full time living. You
Yeah.
know, get yourself a small setup, like you said. Go for your weekend and just try it out, and then you come home and
Hmm.
like, hey, this could work better, and this giant tote full of stuff is not very organized. Maybe we can build a small drawer for our
Yeah.
cooking wares. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
as you go and as we'll go, we'll figure things out and we'll evolve as we go, right? Which makes me curious of what is your camping setup? Like, what's your obviously not bit by bit, but like, what are you using to cook? What's your setup for what's your cooking camp setup?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mainly, I had the full Jetboil base camp system. I had the fold out stove with the single burner attachment plus the Jetboil pot. I recently sold the dual burner, and I just run a single burner because I usually stick to my trail fire grill. It's a it's a propane. It's a 5-in-1. It's a propane fire pit. So part of my efficiencies in my camping setup, I set two rules for myself. Most everything has to have more than one purpose. And then the second is if I don't use it in 3 trips, obviously recovery gear is not part of this. But if I don't use it in 3 trips, it gets pulled out of my rig. So, um, and I'm a cook, and you're gonna appreciate this, and your wife is not gonna appreciate this. My cast iron skillets, I yanked them out because I never use them. Because I have a trail fire grill that is it's a propane fire pit that has a grill grate, so you can grill on it, um, but also has a lid, so you can use it as an oven, or that lid flips over and it's a giant skillet.
Oh
So it's all
wow.
those things built into one, and so I don't ever need my cast irons because if I need, people are like, what if you want to cook on a fire? Well, I can take the carbon steel wok off of the trail fire and put it right on a fire and have essentially a cast iron skillet.
So can you boil
Um,
in it?
you can. That's what I use the single burner jet boil for. If I'm boiling anything, or I've got a pot set, stainless pot that you can put on a propane fire. Now, is propane fire as fun and as delicious as cooking on a real fire? No. But if I want to cook on a real fire, I can. I have the equipment to do it. So that's one of the things that I love it. It's big and bulky. Uh, it's hard to fit into a rig if you don't have the space. But I've just basically adapted my setup around that. So,
But I mean, if it's it sounds like it's super convenient and will
oh
kind
yeah,
of like you know almost almost be worth the bulkiness, because what I'm
yeah,
finding out is that it seems that there's a lot of places, especially in the US, where you can't have an open fire,
exactly.
and you have to have some sort of propane alternative,
Yep,
um,
yep,
which is something that I had no idea about. I was like, oh
yeah,
well, we'll make a fire wherever we go, but
yeah.
it's definitely not the case from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's definitely a old school mentality that people learn real quick. Is not the case anymore. Simple stuff. Being in like national forests and stuff like if you build, supposed to bring wood from home to build in that forest unless you live close by because that piece of wood that you've had in your backyard for 6 years could have some sort of beetle in it that is going to destroy the forest that you burn it
Oh
in.
shit.
And so there's a bunch of those learning curve things that people don't really understand until they just go and they take in that knowledge. Like I'm close to the Ozarks. That's where we go sometimes. And uh, I was talking to a guy the other day. He's like, "Well, if I don't fit with my full size rig, I'll just cut a tree down." And I'm like, "No, you won't, because you're going to get fined and you're going to get the Forest Service tree on you, and they're going to shut the trails down." And so there's the whole aspect on the other side of that of, treading lightly and trying to do your due diligence, and being right by, the property you're on, whether that's private or public.
So what's the, like in that situation, not necessarily, oh, I'm going to cut a tree down to drive through, but if you're going in that area, how do you, can you have open fires? And can you, like here, when we, I'll find a dead tree and I'll cut it down and then I'll make some firewood out of it. Can you just go find a dead tree in the Ozarks and be like, well, this tree's clearly dead. I'm going to cut it down and use it. Is that a thing? Or you can't cut any trees down?
So the rule, I don't know exactly how it's worded, but from what I understand is it has to be fallen. So even if it's dead and it's
Okay.
standing, you cannot cut it down. It has to be a fallen tree.
I mean, that makes sense. And I feel like there's
Yeah.
probably enough. Well, I would assume there's quite a bit of trees that are
Yeah.
fallen that you could take.
Yeah. So, I mean, the general rule of thumb we do is we just always use a pop-up pit or some sort of a pit, or find a spot that has a rock ring around it already, because we try to leave every place we go better than it was when we got there, type deal. So, if there's a fire ring somewhere, don't build another one, just use that one, type deal. So a lot of it you would think would be common sense, but a lot of people don't. I mean, it's like I almost feel bad saying it's common sense, because I think that's just because I grew up in this world, kind of, not in the overland world, but camping, and so we get stuck in our old school mentalities of thinking we know everything,
Yeah.
and it's just not the case. Just be open to what the rules are around you. Like you mentioned it earlier, a lot of places in the States, they have burn bans. Well, immediately my thought is, well, you need a propane fire.
Yeah.
Well, some places don't even allow an open
Oh,
flame. So that's something you have to pay attention to also. There's different stages of that burn ban that, even a propane fire pit's not allowed.
so what would consider like what do you do at that point if there's no, like, I had no, that this is completely new to me. Like, what do you do
Don't
at that
camp
point?
there. Yeah, I don't camp there. I've never been in that sort of scenario. That's just what I've read. Some scenarios of, everywhere I've been, it's just been propane fire, not an actual ember fire that could spark something. So
I've even like this one, I was completely taken back by it, but I seen somebody posted something and then they got completely roasted because you're not supposed to go to the bathroom in the wilderness anymore. Is that a,
there's there's rules and there's personal preference. To me, I don't be stupid. Don't leave trash behind.
yeah,
If it And that's where it really comes down to knowing the area you're going to be camping in. Each area is going to have different rules. I mean, I'm in the central part of America where we drink beer and we shoot guns. And so people aren't going to care if you have to use the restroom outside. Just don't leave your toilet paper, and don't, do that where people are going to be walking in, bury it. Like,
common
just be
sense.
respectful. Yeah.
Like,
What you would think would be common sense.
right?
Common sense. Yeah.
Bury your human waste and take your garbage with you and leave no trace. Essentially, seems
Exactly.
relatively simple.
You would think.
But that being said, I have seen some posts of some completely atrocious messes that idiots leave around.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's it seems to be in the places that are easier to get to.
Yeah.
Um, and I've spoke to a few people and they're like, yeah, if I see a Toyota there, like a Toyota Corolla or a big camper, then I'm just gonna go a little bit further
Yeah.
where I know
Mosey
that,
on.
yeah. But okay, so without keeping you too much longer, two more very important questions.
Okay.
What is your first thing in the morning that you drink? Are you a coffee guy or a tea guy or a hot chocolate guy?
Oh, that's a loaded question. It depends. I do love coffee, but coffee has its place for me. I'm not that. every morning. Don't talk to me before I have my coffee. Now, if I'm camping and there's a chill in the air, definitely. But I'm an energy drink guy.
A what?
So an energy drink guy.
Okay.
So that or it's either a C4 or some electrolytes to get my day going.
Fair enough. And when you do have coffee, what are you putting in it?
Oh, I like my coffee like I like my donuts.
All right. Is it honey
So
glazed? I'm trying
is
to
it
think.
what?
Like honey glazed, I'm trying to think of any kind of donut that would go well with a coffee, and the first that came to mind is honey.
Yeah, I just like a little coffee with my cream and sugar. That's doesn't really matter. Everyone's like, you need to try
Ah,
this coffee. It's so delicious. And I'm like, all my coffee's good because I put coconut creamer in it.
ooh, coconut
Mm,
creamer. This
yeah.
this is the first I've heard of coconut creamer, and as much as
Mm,
I'm a black coffee guy, coconut creamer sounds really good.
it's delicious.
I'm definitely gonna have
Yeah.
to give that a try.
Yeah.
Um, and then lastly, what's on the horizon for Overland Spices?
Oh man, a lot. We have a new blend we're working on. It's one I wanted to launch with, but it wasn't there yet, and it's still not there.
So it's gonna be good then.
Um, it's a taco slash fajita blend, and I'm calling it Taco Mas, like more tacos or Tacomas. Um, so I'm excited about it. It's about 98% dialed in. Um, it's really good in the palm, like when you just sample it, but when you cook with it, it just needs something.
When you
So
cook with it, is it like losing something or it's just missing something?
it's just missing something. Like the flavor's not as strong as I want it to be. Now I could make it more strong by just adding more of that seasoning, but there's a fine line of, seasoning your food. You don't want it to taste like you put a ton of seasoning in it,
I
right?
mean, it sounds like it's a very it sounds like it's that one missing piece that's gonna, in the cartoons like
Yeah,
Eureka, and then
yeah,
just
exactly.
absolutely
Uh-huh.
blows everything up.
Yeah. And usually my go-to is cumin, but I tried that. I tried adding more. I tried taking some out. I tried a different kind of cumin, and it's still just everyone that I have let try it has loved it. And I'm my own worst critic, like you're your own worst
For
critic.
sure.
And so that's why I sent it out to some people that I know will be 100% honest with me and say, "Hey, I love it." And then if I get their blessing, then I know it's just me being me. So
I love it. So you got a new spice that's on the absolute cusp of coming out, and then
yeah,
any kind of events or any kind of you got Colorado trip that's being planned.
yeah. So wanting to travel as much as I can, obviously, but it's show season where we're at, so we've got events lined up basically every weekend. This is our last free weekend for 6 weeks, so I'm gonna hone in and just network and network, meet as many people, shake as many hands, and that's the fun of it for me. I just love people,
Yeah,
so that's what's the coolest thing about like going to Flagstaff this year for Expo West. It's like I had this guy come and says, "What's up, Tate?" And I'm like, "I don't know who you are, man, but what's up?" And he's from California and tied to the Average Overlander podcast, and it's cool,
I love it.
And so it's cool seeing the fruit of a year's work because we're a little over a year in, a year's worth of work. A fruition of that has been extremely cool. So it'll be this show season is going to be a little bit different because people already know about the brand, and so it'll be intriguing to see kind of how it plays out. So I'm excited about it.
That's awesome, man. I definitely enjoy seeing the success, and I mean for where you're at with just a year, it just speaks on the quality of your spices and the quality of the effort that you're putting into it. Like you said, to do marketing, and it seems like you're doing all the right stuff. And yeah, man, I'm super excited to see kind of where it goes, and I'm super excited to get my hands on some of these spices
Yeah,
and add it well, add it to my wife's inventory
yeah.
because she's the cook,
There you
um,
go.
and so everybody can find you on Overland Spices. And then do you have YouTube or other channels where people can find you?
Yeah, so all the social medias, we do have a YouTube, but it's minimal right now. That's one of my goals this year is I really want to hone in on some more recipes. There's a lot of people that have cookbooks. I've seen a few cookbooks, and they're cool, but they're complex. No one wants to go to the store to buy coriander to cook this one recipe. And so I really want to try to do some recipes that are more simple, and not necessarily just with overland spices. Obviously, that's going to be a plug, but um, show people that it doesn't take all of those things to cook a quality meal. And so the videos are attractive to anyone who watches them anyways. So that's the next step on the marketing side, is trying to build up that YouTube side where it's more informing that way.
That's awesome. And
So
I feel like doing any kind of camping cooking, the simpler the better. So I mean, you'll have that advantage as well, right?
yeah,
To show like, hey, this is what I cooked with what
yeah,
I have. You
yeah.
don't need the big
It's
fancy.
Yeah, and it's hard for me because I get in this mode where I'm like, I'm going on a trip. Like I'm like, all right, I'm turning my phone off. I'm gonna just camp and I'm gonna reset and I'm gonna enjoy it. And then it's like Sunday rolls around and I'm like, I didn't take one picture. I didn't take any videos. Like I need to be better about this.
Yeah. No, I've been trying. Like I've never done content or of any kind, so I'm in that same kind of like. I'm like, oh, I just installed this on the truck, but I didn't record it. Like, everybody records when they install a sticky mirror on their air vent or whatever. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
I'm trying to get used to that as well. But
yeah,
Tate, thank you so much, man, for talking to me and teaching me a few things, because I'm taking away a few good lessons here, and I appreciate that. Um, Best of luck to you with figuring out the last piece of the puzzle on that spice,
yeah,
and we'll definitely keep in touch. I'm looking forward to seeing what goes down, and I'm looking forward to doing some cooking with you when we come in your neck of the woods.
yeah. Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. And if you guys are through Oklahoma, reach out.
Oh, 100%, man. You can count on that.
Mhm.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
All right, talk later.
See you, man.